people were just using it as a word to describe the good stuff. So it wasn't just the name of the place, it wasn't just the name of the whiskey, it was just kind of a word to describe quality. So if you were at a bar in London or Edinburgh, and you were sitting there and you saw the top shelf, they all said, you know, Glenlivet on it, and said, okay, well, that's the stuff for me, that's what I want. So you order it and you drink it, but then you quickly realize, well, this isn't the real Glenlivet, what is this? Obviously that creates a huge issue, a huge problem for the brand and George's son, John Gordon Smith. So he had to fight this long legal battle. It cost him a lot just to win the right to be called the Glenlivet. It's been called the Glenlivet since 1884.
It all started in the upper reaches of Glenlivet. Its remoteness allowed smugglers to run their stills slowly to produce a legendary smooth whiskey. It was demanded by King George IV, who'd heard of an illicit dram so smooth he had to taste it himself. It took a gritty, single-minded Speyside farmer called George Smith to have the courage to set up a distillery to capture its character. It was defended on more than one occasion. It quickly gained a reputation as the first smooth whiskey and was written about by Charles Dickens. It seemed there was no stopping George's irrepressible spirit once the railway opened. Its legacy passed to his son, John Gordon Smith, and it lived on. It was copied by so many distillers far and wide. It took 8 years of legal wrangling, but John prevailed. It was agreed it would be called the Glenlivet. It was threatened by fire, but John turned disaster into opportunity, installing telephone and electricity lines during rebuilding. It all went quiet as production stopped during the war. It was taken on by Captain Bill Smithgrant, a fearless man who was awarded the Military Cross. It became one of the first single malts in America after Prohibition. It was going great guns until war broke out anew. It got back on track when the US Pullman Company telegraphed for a complete reorder of miniatures. And it lived on. Its popularity continued to spread thanks to the jet set. It celebrated its 150th anniversary when things were really on the up. Its distillery expansion opening was overseen by the present-day master distiller Alan Winchester. It has starred in many films and TV series. It has served in bars in the 4 corners of the world. It returned to the simple appreciation of quality ingredients with Nadu. It's a dram Alan Winchester thinks George Smith would have approved of. It's the single malt that started it all. On it lives.
All right. Anybody need translation for that? Subtitles? Okay. All right. So the legacy of the Glenlivet is still very much alive today, and it's because of his dedication to using one of the finest ingredients. Is really what sets the Glenlivet apart. So how does our whiskey come to be? Well, earlier mentioned Ushka, whiskey, water of life. This is our water of life right here, Josie's well. Not much has really changed around the distillery. It's still in the middle of nowhere. It's still beautiful, kind of difficult to get to, especially if you're taking a tour bus. You need a skilled driver to get through those roads and then sheep in the area. But think of it, pollution-free. Nothing's out there. It's fresh snow, it's fresh rain. You know, it melts, passes underground through granite and limestone, makes the water very mineral rich. This helps with the extraction of sugars more easily during mashing and fermenting. From there, we distill it in these unique copper pot lantern shaped stills. Very tall, some of the tallest out there and wide. This is going to play a big part in what we're going to experience tonight with our whiskeys, because if you think about it, only the lightest vapors can really make it all the way to the top. And the heavier ones will keep falling down until they become lighter and eventually get up there. So when you're trying these whiskeys in the moment, you know, think and find these lighter, kind of elegant, fruity style whiskeys. And from there, we age it in these carefully hand-selected American European casks. As I said before, by law, at least 3 years, we don't even bottle ours until at least 12 years, just to give you a little bit of point of reference. And I don't know if you've ever tried a 3-year-old Scotch. It's not all that great, not very palatable. I don't recommend it, but it's quite raw. So, 200 years of legacy and history comes to this very moment right here in Washington, D.C. We're all a part of it now because we're all an important piece to continuing this legacy and sharing it with future guardians, because now you're all guardians, and we can kind of keep this train rolling. So with that, we're moving into the nosing and tasting part of the night. Who here has been to a whiskey tasting before? Oh, bad can up there. Nice. All right. Been a couple.
I have a question.
Not yet. You'll typically learn about wood maturation, management, all these things, but tonight we're going to keep things super simple. We're going to just focus on three things. One is the aromas. 80% of what you experience tonight will come from the nose. So it's kind of important. It's the single most defining characteristic of a single malt Scotch whiskey. So, think about it. This has been aging for quite some time. We really want to appreciate what they are, and your nose is obviously more powerful than your palate is anyway. Then we're going to focus on the palate. That's the second part. Even though these two whiskeys come from the Glenlivet, they do have their own unique qualities to them. And finally, the finish. If you notice, you ever drink your whiskey kind of fast? It's bourbon, it's Irish, Canadian whiskey. Other than the fact that you just might be an awesome drinker, maybe you're looking for something more because it has a really quick finish. Or maybe you can taste your whiskey until next Tuesday. Maybe your whiskey has a little bit longer finish than desired, and you're looking for something a little bit more tame. So hopefully you're going to find that with all these whiskeys, or at least one of them tonight. So on to the nosing portion of the evening. If you've ever read a whiskey review, and there's even a whiskey joint here in town that has a pretty interesting menu, how they describe their whiskeys. You'll see things like this whiskey has a nice creamy orange fondant and pear drop sweets, or cups of children's laughter sprinkled with unicorn tears, or something ridiculous. It gets out of control sometimes. So as I said before, we're going to keep things really simple. I'm going to focus on just top four notes. Alright, so we're going to look at fruity, we're going to look at spicy, floral, and smoky. Obviously, these are just families of notes. There are many more layers, many more complexities and subtleties. But to be honest, if you can guess what whiskey goes with one of these four notes, you're already 90% ahead of the game. So that's where we're going to start. You have 4 silver candles just in front of you, to your side. I want you to go ahead and pick them up. Get our senses going. I want you to nose them. They are numbered. The numbers won't matter right now, but they will in a moment. So go ahead and see if you can go ahead and match up which family notes goes with which canister. Which canister. I'm going to give you about a minute to do that.
Spicy cinnamon. Floral's that flower. Number 3.
Fruity is orange. One is fruity.
This is a floral. That's a floral.
Well, yeah, what's 3?
So that's floral is 3.
Okay.
Spicy is the cinnamon. This is my guess. Yeah, spicy, floral, spicy, smoky. This must be fruity.
Yeah, fruity. The 4 is
So 1, and then spicy. This is floral. Spicy, 3.
Alright, so this was the easiest part of the night, so we're not going to spend too much time on it. I'm sure you want to try some whiskeys anyway. So, canister number 1. Which family goes do you think that goes to? Yes, fruity. So within this family, you're going to see things like candy fruits, or super sweet stuff, like apples, or citrus fruits like oranges, or tropical fruits like coconuts, bananas, bless you. So all those things will typically fall into this category. Okay, canister number 2. Spicy, yes. Cinnamon, licorice, anise, warm holly spices, all these things typically describe things in this family. Canister 3. Yes, you can see the flower that was sticking out of the top there, kind of dead the other way. Still sweet, but now we're talking about soft, light, elegant, all those things within this family. And finally, canister number 4. That's smoky. I've heard things like Band-Aids, iodine, hospital corridor, barbecue. Someone said chicken once. Okay, I wouldn't want to go to that party, but sure. And I say that because you can't add coconuts, you can't add vanilla, you can't add band-aids to your whiskey. That would be completely illegal. Otherwise, whatever you're sensing and nosing is absolutely right. So where do you get this smoky, heavily peated note? Well, peat is used. What is peat? Peat is basically dirt. It's centuries of compressed and compacted, fossilized vegetation. When you burn it, it gives off a smoky aroma and attaches itself to barley. It stays with it throughout the entire process. We do not use peat whatsoever in any of our whiskeys, so you're going to completely eliminate canister number 4 entirely from the equation altogether. So if you say you're nosing or tasting something smoky, you are wrong. It's actually our quality control. If I know you're drunk, you gotta go. Okay, so do not say smoky. Otherwise, you're not wrong, because it's just those 3 simple ingredients: water, yeast, and 100% malted barley. That's it. All right. So don't say smoky. All right. So in front of you, from left to right, you have the Glenlivet 12, the Glenlivet 15, and the Glenlivet 18. I'm going to ask you to do 2 things when you do the tasting. 1, don't just shoot it. Any whiskey that you do that to, it's all going to be warm and fuzzy going down. We obviously want to taste these. They've been aging for quite some time. We want to appreciate them. 2, save half for later. Because if you drink it all now, you're just going to take my word for it. Whatever I tell you, you're sensing. Okay? No, I want you to discover the whiskeys yourself. So when we come back to it, you're going to find that that's where the magic really happens. So, first things first. Go ahead and pick up the glass on the left. The Glenlivet 12, what we were enjoying earlier. What I want you to do is get your taste buds going a little bit and just prep them. So anytime you taste, I kind of roll around my palate like 4 or 5 seconds before I consume. So.
Oh, are we drinking this one? What are we doing? The 12?
Okay, now that we're all prepped, you notice that you have water inside of it. I want you to add a little water. Some people say, no, I'm not going to do that to my whiskey. You can't do that. Adding water actually, scientifically, chemically, enhances the flavors and aromas because there are bonds in your whiskey. And the water breaks apart these bonds, and all these little subtleties are now released. Obviously, if you add too much water, yeah, it's going to dilute your whiskey. So you have to find the right balance for you. How much is that balance? Well, think of it as like salt. Obviously, you can't take any away because it's in there. And everyone is going to be a little different. So start with a little, and then add some more. Less alcohol, you'll be picking up and more of the whiskey. So with all that said, I'm going to ask this one, what canister of notes you think goes with this one? And I give you a free pass on the first try, because obviously we've had nothing else to compare it to. And that's why I want you to save something later to come back to it. You'll definitely discover it. So no pressure on the first one. And you're more than welcome to pick up the canister with your nose and see if you can find anything that way.
Yeah, it's all right. I would put an ice cube.
Do you have any confident guesses yet? Definitely not smoking. Alright. This is going to fall into the fruity canister. And that's why I said you get a free pass in the first one, because when we come back to it, you're absolutely going to discover why it is the fruity family. I want you to think about apples, pineapples, pears in this one. It's really light, really elegant. So I had a great question earlier about age taking and things like that. I don't want you to put too much stock into the age taking. When I was at the distillery, they were rolling out 15-year-old whiskey for the 12-year. How? Why does that happen? Well, if you're talking about a long period of time, things change. There could be a long period of cold winters or really warm summers, so that whiskeys age differently, and things change over time. And you basically have to figure out how to keep the product the same on every single bottle. So if you ever go to one of the warehouses and you see the whiteboard on the side with the current recipe, you take a picture of it, think you're being a slide, it's going to be different next month anyway. So you won't get away with too much there. Let's go ahead and move on to the second one. All right, don't think I'm rushing you through these, because we're going to have about 5 or 6 minutes to just sit back and enjoy these whiskeys, and I'll go around and answer the questions that you may have. So we're going to taste these first, and then you can go back to the 12 and kind of rediscover for yourself. So the 15, French Oak Reserve. So some of this whiskey is aged exclusively in virgin French oak. It's going to do 2 really cool things to this whiskey. One, on the nose, it's still pretty sweet. Still very sweet, actually. But on the palate, it's going to be a very different kind of whiskey. It's almost got like this buttery viscosity to it, almost like this texture. So first feel that when you're moving it around in the palate, and when you consume it, you should really notice a really cool feature about this one.
Just like what?
Somebody want to take a guess? What family comes this goes to?
That's pretty yummy.
You should feel it before you taste it. It's spicy. Yeah. Taste it again. Before you even taste it, you should feel some tingling on the side. And then when you swallow it, it's like warm right here. That's no coincidence. That's what the French oak does to this whiskey. So as I said before, don't put too much stock into the age statement because this is at least 15-year whiskey. But it's very different from the 12-year, even though some 15-year whiskey go into that one. Do you get the sensation the second time around? Quite different from the 12. Try a couple pops.
It is quite different.
So the age statement, it just guarantees the youngest drop of liquid in the bottle. So technically, by law, the 12-year-old whiskey, it could have been a 40-year-old whiskey, but one tiny little drop of 12-year-old whiskey got into it, has to legally be called 12-year-old whiskey. All right, so the third glass, the Glenlivet 18, where the French oak had some, or where the 15 had some French oak. This has a little bit of Spanish oak now. Not too much, a pretty good balance. Obviously, by process of elimination, we know it is canister number 3, so what I want you to do is pick up canister number 3, give it a nose, and then give your whiskey a nose. I want you to find these soft, elegant, floral notes in this whiskey. Yeah. Oh my damn yes. I like that. That one's new. I love it. But even though it's light and full on the nose, it's going to do something really surprising on the finish. Go ahead and give it a taste.
It is quite pleasant.
It is a very bold whiskey. After you swallow it, only then it starts to open up and get bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah? So if you like your bolder whiskeys, this one's going to sit with you a little bit longer. You're going to be able to enjoy this one a little bit longer. All right, so this is where the magic happens. All right, now I want you to go back to the 12, and I want you to try it. If you didn't think it was fruity the first time, now give it a taste. It's almost like water compared to the 18. It is so light and elegant. So discover this. I'm going to give you about 5 minutes. Just sit back, enjoy your whiskeys. I'm going to walk around. If you have any questions, I'm going to answer them.